All right, let's start our Sunday class. Good morning and happy Mother's Day to all of you. So let's start with our prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhu Bhuvaswaha, Tatsavitra Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat, Asto Ma Satgamya, Tamso Ma Jyotirgamya, Mrityurma Amritam Gamya. Om Sahna Vavatu, Sahna Bhunaktu, Sahviryam Karvavahi, तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहि ओम शांति शांति शांति. Okay, these days we are studying Ishavasya Upanishad. It's a very short Upanishad, only 18 mantras. And if this is the first time you're coming to this class, you will find all 18 mantras on our website. You can print it out um, and just try to see what do these mantras say to you, because Upanishads are very deep, profound, so it may speak to you completely right now or it may not. You got to just dig deeper and deeper into it and see what does it say to you. See, just like last week we ended our class with verse number 8, where this Rishi is giving us some pointers to understand who we are. Okay, how can we talk about we are soul, we are Atma, we are part of God. Exactly what it is, because you really cannot put it into words. So that's why he's just giving us the pointers towards it. He says he, the Atma, is all pervading, all pervading. Even if you think that my Atma in this body, it pervades in the entire body. But in the real sense, it's all pervading everywhere. Bright, bodiless. So there's no shape and form to it. Only bodies can have shape and form. Bodiless. Without any wound, without muscles, pure, unpierced by evils, wise, omniscient, knows everything, transcendent, and self-existing. So whichever term can take our attention to this reality, that's what we are. He alone allotted their respected functions to the various creators. Creators, various creators. So it could mean Brahmaji, the godly power who creates, but creator in this body also. Constantly there's a creation of cells in our body. Constantly new cells are being. And who gives the power to it? He does, Atma does. Okay, so don't look at it he as a gender, a man. It's just like it to point it out, that power. So this is what we talked about last time in detail. If you don't have any question, if you have a question, we can talk about it. We can discuss. Otherwise, let's move on to the next section of this small Upanishad. And next section goes from verse 9 to 14. It's the same thought wave, 9 to 14. And what is Rishi indicating in these verses? He is suggesting very strongly that knowledge and action are to be taken together. They go hand in hand. If you want to yield the maximum dividend, neither of them should be practiced to the exclusion of the other. Okay? So we need to meditate also, and we need to do our duties as a worship. So action should be taken as worship. Worship is when you put love into something, that becomes a worship. All our actions. So they should be faithfully followed, one after the other. In the morning, you get up, do your cleansings, do your yoga, do your prayers, or whatever else you need to do for the rest of the day, one after the other as a worship, not as a drudgery, not as a burden, as a worship. Put love into it. There should be a harmony and integration between these two, meditation and action. So effect of the meditation should be seen in the actions, and effect of the actions, you see it in the meditation. Only then this pair will take you to the state of self-recognition. Otherwise, these are just terms. I'm meditating, I'm a meditator, or I'm a karma yogi. We got to recognize who we are. We have to have a self-awareness. That is the purpose of life. And this is what this great Rishi is telling us in this segment from 9 to 14. So let's start with the 9. So one verse alone is not capturing the whole idea. So that's why just make sure that you study all of them, all 5 verses in a unison. Let's look at number 9. Andham tama pravishanti ye avidyam upasate tataha bhuya ivate tama ya u vidyayam rata. Andham, blinding, dark. Tama, darkness. Pravishanti, enter. Ye means who? Avidyam is ignorance. Upasate, worships. Tataha, then that. Bhuya, greater. If means as though. Te means they. Tamha, darkness. Ya means who. U means verily. Vidyayam, in vidya, in knowledge. Rataha, devoted, engaged in. They who worship avidya alone enter into blinding darkness. And what does this avidya mean here? That means just the rituals. Rituals to fulfill your desires. That's avidya. Okay? Sakam bhakti is called avidya. So they who worship avidya alone enter into blinding darkness. And they who are engaged in vidya, that means the meditation, fall as though into an even greater darkness. So what is he trying to tell us? What are we supposed to do? I told you last time that key word over here is sure, learning to know avidya means the skam bhakti, and iv word as though, as though. And rata, devoted, that's also a key word in here in this verse. So one way we can look at it, that this Upanishad is giving us the answer to the eternal doubt as to whether a life of action or a life of meditation is the ideal way of living. Yesterday also, one young lady, she asked me in the class, if you were in the class, which one is better? Which one is higher? Sitting meditating or doing the actions outside? Actions means charitable work also. So actions does not mean only for yourself, even if you're doing it for somebody else, which one is better? Okay, knowledge versus action, meditation versus the rituals. So in this particular verse, this Rishi has opened up the problem, and he will summarize his conclusion in the following verses. Next three mantras will see that. So that's why I said, do not come to the conclusion with just with the one verse. Try to study all of them and see what do you get out of these, this whole group. Okay. So, so outward activity versus inward contemplation. That's one way you can understand. Outward activity is avidya and inward contemplation is vidya. Or ritualism undertaken, whipped by desires for the fruits of them is avidya. Okay, that I want to have this and I want to worship God. That is avidya. From which standpoint? From the absolute standpoint of the Rishi. It's not that we should not do rituals, but from the absolute standpoint. If we want to reach up to that height of self-awareness, otherwise we just stay there. That's why he used the word blinding darkness. Because one desire is fulfilled, then another one erupts. That fulfills, another one erupts. And we just stay only in fulfilling these desires. In that sense, he said it's a darkness. But then he said a greater darkness if we are meditating. They seem to fall as though into a still greater darkness, because if the mind is not prepared, we just, in a very hasty and unprepared, with that kind of a mind, we meditate, we may overdo the negation aspect of the technique of meditation. I am the meditator. That is also avidya. I doesn't meditate. So we have to understand not only how to meditate, when to meditate, but why to meditate also. And who is meditating? So in that sense, he is saying that it could be a more blinding for a person. I meditate more than you do. That's a blindness. That's ignorance. So in this connection, the term as though a greater darkness is very significant. So it's not really darkness, but as though darkness. Because if you don't have a complete knowledge, we are just blinding ourselves. So he doesn't say that don't meditate. He doesn't say don't do the rituals. But he's saying understand it fully. Where are you going? What are you doing? What the purpose of life is? Okay. So let's look at next few verses also, then we can have some conversation. Number 10. Anyat ev ahu avidya, anyat ahu avidya, iti shushram dhira nam yen tat vichakshre. Anyat, different. Ev means definitely. Ahu, say, like they say. Avidya, by avidya. Anyat, different. Again, ahu means say. Iti means thus. Shushrum, have heard. Dhira naam, of the wise. Ye means who, na means to us. Tat means that, which chakshre, explained. One thing they say is verily obtained from Vidya. Another thing they say from avidya. Thus we have heard from the wise who explained that to us. So that means the rishis declared this. So rishis are the one who are declaring the truth. This is not just one person's opinion. Hinduism is not the product of a single prophet. Hinduism is a wisdom declared which is risen from the experience of realized saints. Many of them, not just one or two. So generations after generation, a truth that has been tested, a truth that has been found fit upon the touchstone of the life by repeated generations. That is the truth which has been accepted by Hindus. So that's why he is telling us in this verse that each of them, avidya and vidya, they both serve a definite purpose. Result of vidya and avidya are different from each other. And it's not just one person's opinion. So it's not only Rishi's own intellectual comprehension. So this is what he heard from the wise people. Both vidya and avidya can be a bondage. And over here, why are we doing all this? To get out of the bondage. Because vidya means the knowledge. Knowledge just for the sake of knowing something. It could be a very painful limitation. I know this. I am knowledgeable. But these Vedic rishis, they are trying to make us liberated. We don't want to be chained by the knowledge either. And we don't want to be chained by the desire prompted rituals either. So he's going to teach us how to transcend both so that we can reach the state of absolute freedom, absolute perfection. Vidyam cha avidyam ya tat ved ubhyagam sah avidyaha mrityum tirtavaha vidya amritam ashnute. So now you're familiar with these two terms, vidyam, avidyam. Cha means and, ya means who, tat means that, ved, known, ubhyam, both. So that's why I said in these verses, he's telling us to practice both actually. Sah means together. So it's not one or the other, both of them together. Avidya, mrityum, death. Tirtavaha, crossing. Vidya, by Vidya. Amritam, immortality. Ashnute, obtains. He who knows at the same time both Vidya and Avidya overcomes death by Avidya and obtains immortality by Vidya. So he's summarizing how Vidya and Avidya are to be pursued in a happy synthesis together. So it's like a synthesis of material activity, the karam, because we live in this Maya. So we got to do our duties while living here, and spiritual knowledge also. So that is what he is advocating to us. But the exact technique, he has not given it to us. But he is making a declaration beyond all doubts. He is expressing it as a perfect and complete, as a scientific statement. He who combines in himself both Vidya and Avidya together would overcome death by Avidya, obtain immortality by Vidya. So selfless, dedicated work, it prepares a person for contemplation. And when through contemplation, Vidya is fulfilled in direct, then you have a direct apprehension of your life, of yourself, who you are. Then with that kind of a knowledge, when you do the duty, the karma also, that's where a sacred satisfaction, a fulfillment in doing the karma is also. So they both help each other. So daily rituals, daily doing your duties also, daily meditation, it's just both help each other. It's not just one or the other. So that's what these great teachers, they are giving us the real joy, the real beauty of existence. That's how the whole society can flourish. Because without Vidya, to act in the outer world of avidya is almost impossible. It is very unprofitable. There's a lot of struggle, lot of competition, lot of violence without vidya. So this particular verse certainly giving us a clear indication of Atma Gyan and Karma Yoga. We need to know who we are, but at the same time, we need to do our duties also. Having gained Vidya in this very life, still, according to the prarabdha you are living, you are still existing in this body to take care of the body. You are living in the society. To know how to live in harmony with the society, you need to do, even if you know who you are. So that's why, even towards the end, you need to learn how to keep this synthesis between these two. So we got to fulfill our self-realization through our activities in the world outside. That's what we have to learn. So self-realization is not only in the experience that our own self is divine, We saw that earlier also, this Rishi mentioned in verses 6 and 7. But we have to have the completeness of the self-realization is only when we realize that myself is no different than anybody else's self outside. That is a complete realization. Otherwise, if a person think, no, I am the part of God, the super being, and considers everybody else low, that is not self-realization. And why did he mention this term over here? Overcomes death by avidya. See, we are supposed to practice this in synthesis. So overcomes death by avidya. Does it mean that by doing the Karam Yoga and by doing our rituals properly, we won't die? No. That really means, see, if you remember the sayings that death can frighten only him who misunderstands himself to be the body. Right? I mean, who is frightened about death? A person who thinks I am the body. By practicing all this, you know you are not the body and you are not frightened by the death then. So in that sense, overcome the death. Okay, these Upanishadic statements can never be taken literally. You got to see what the underlining message is. So death can frighten only him who misunderstands himself to be the body. But to a person who has realized that he is the Atma, death is only one of the meaningless delusory changes in his body's own. Every day we are dying. Part of us is dying. The babyhood, the adulthood, childhood, cells are dying. We are not worried about those. We are not frightened about it. Yesterday is dead. We are not frightened because we know there's a today and then there will be tomorrow. We see the continuation of it. So with this proper understanding of Vidya and Avidya, with this Karam Yoga also, with the Upasanas also, and with the meditations also, worships also, we see the total picture and then we are not frightened. When we think that we know all, but actually we know only a small portion, then we are frightened. And obtains immortality by Vidya. We all know mortality is the fate of matter and not the destiny of the spirit. We often talk about the example of the jar. Jar may break, but the space in the jar cannot break. Okay? So Atma never ends. So this is what he means by obtains immortality by Vidya. If a person says, I've been meditating, I've been doing the rituals, I've been living a good life, I have helped others also, I do my duties, but still afraid of death, frightened about it, that means knowledge is not there. This knowledge should come with the help of the Vidya also and Avidya also. Because with all this, what are we trying to do? We are ending our ego. We are ending our wrong understanding of who we are. Because we all know mortal minus his ego is the immortal truth. We got to dissolve our ego. Mortal minus our ego. Because when we are surrendering to God or the Guru, what are we surrendering? Not not just a head of ours. That's just only a symbol that we are bending our head down. We are dissolving our ego, surrendering our ego, and only then we can know the immortal truth. So mortal minus his ego is the immortal truth. And this is what he means over here when he says obtains immortality by vidya. So if we have done meditation like that, upasana like that, then only then you can understand truly and experience it. What is that immortal part in you? That is the self-realization. That's what we are seeking for. Surrendering our entire ego concept through meditation, transcend all the identifications with the body, mind, intellect. If all day long we cannot do it, at least for a few minutes a day, during our prayers, during our meditations, only then we will rediscover ourselves to be the pure Atma. It's nothing new we are doing. It's a rediscovering only because we have forgotten. For this kind of a person, if we have achieved this, there's no rebirth. And neither there is a chain of karmic effects to bind him down to the wheels of sansar. Otherwise, if a person says, no, I am the meditator, I have done so many rituals, I need to reap the reward of it. He says that's avidya. That is a bondage. So the whole diagram we have to understand. Purpose of life, how to do it, complete picture. Now let's look at next verse. Now he's using a little different terminology, but the same idea. Andham tama pravishanti ye asambhutim upasate tatha bhuya ivate tama ya u sambhutyagya. Andham, blinding. Tama, darkness. Pravishanti, enters into. Ye means who? Sambhutim, unmanifest. Upasate, worship. Tatha means then that. Bhuya, again. Iv means as though. Te means they. Tamaha, darkness. Ya means who. Oh, verily. Verily, sorry, verily. Sambhu tyagam, in the manifested. Rata, devoted. They fall into blinding darkness who worship the unmanifested. But those who devote themselves to the manifested enter into greater darkness. So we've got to read this exactly the same way we read the verse 9. Over here, he's just using only, instead of work, worship, and the meditation, he's using the word asambhutim and sambhutyagam. Unmanifest and the manifested. So again, these mantras, 12, 13, and 14 now, is called a triple stanza. So same idea as in the 9, 10, and 11. Why did he repeat himself with different terms? For a better classification, better understanding for us. Maybe some people did not like those terms. So he's using these terms so that there's a clarity in the reader's mind. Okay. This is a Vedic rishis way of teaching. They want to express the idea fully. They don't want us to just leave there halfway over there. Partly we understand and partly we don't understand. So they just keep on bringing different terms for us, because no term can fully explain what he's trying to explain it to us. So vidya and avidya, they are not mutually contradictory. They are not conflicting ideas. The same way asambhutim and sambhutyagam, they are not contradictory actually. In fact, they are complementary to each other. If you look at that synthesis of these two, they are to be undertaken in an intelligent sequence. So first, avidya is dictated by our desires, so that the tamsikta comes out of us. Inertia, because tamsikta is inertia. We need to take that out. Because a tamasic person says, I am meditating, not really meditating. So this is the first step actually. So action as dictated by our desires in order to bring us out of our inertia. That is a active mentality, which is also called enthusiasm, and that is rajsikta. But once we are rajsik, sure we want to fulfill our desires. So then the Rishi says pursuit of the desireless activity is needed. Sure, you are working hard, but part of that working hard should be given back to the society. That's a desireless activity. Only then you can gain a purification in your mind. That's the only way the intellect will be ready to absorb. It will be prepared for meditation. And later on, with that kind of an intellect, when you meditate diligently, only then you will feel the fulfillment of the knowledge. Okay? So this he has been telling us actually. So this is the synthesis of the avidya and the vidya. But now over here in this section, unmanifest and manifest, these are like a formless God and a God with a form. Because that's another question people have. Worshipping the formless God is better than the worshipping the God with a form. God with a form is also called a personal God, Isht Devata. Because there had been a lot of controversy upon the relative merit of doing this. People who worship the formless, they say, no, that is higher. People who worship with the form, they say, that is better. So which one is better? Or another way you can understand this asambhuti and sambhuti, Gyan or bhakti actually. Because that's a path of Gyan. God is everywhere. People say, yeah, when I walk in the forest also I see God. Or some people say, no, I need to touch the feet of my Guru. That is a bhakti. So this Upanishad is giving us enough to think about it. Is this controversy still exists in our mind? Has it become just a baseless and meaningless for us? Can we just really detach our mind from it? See, just like a vidya and avidya, after going through it completely, we can see that we need to combine it together. We got to understand the synthesis of it and remember the ultimate goal. The same way, can we do that with Gyan and Bhakti also? Or do we still have a contradiction in our mind? Or do we have a contradiction between the form and the formless? We have to think about it. See, that's why this scripture is very short. It's making us think. The real answer should come from our own contemplation. He is not telling us which one is better. He is only through these terms pointing us towards the ultimate goal. Each in the lap of the other grows stronger and more established. Love for your Isht Devata, love for your Guru, love for the form of God, and knowledge about the God is everywhere. Sure, I love this form, but the essence in this form is no different than everywhere else. Truly understanding it, experiencing it, will definitely heighten our progress. Okay, so do not get lost with these terms, vidya, avidya, asambhuti or sambhuti. See what is he trying to tell us? So that's why I told you in the beginning that these verses are encouraging us to do our duty also towards this temporary stay in this world. This is a temporary stay, nonetheless very important stay, because how we stay determines our future also. But it is temporary though. Okay, see, just like every day how we live, we are chalking our next day and the next day. The same way this life is determining our future lives. So with a full understanding, we got to do it. So think it through. Think it. Very important. It's like see, this is the beauty of the Vedic seers. They just make us contemplate. They make us think deeply into this life of ours. Again and again, they bring our attention toward the ultimate purpose, but they don't say that ignore today what you are doing. Do it in the light of ultimate purpose. Okay, so I'm going to stop it here. So I'm sure you have questions. If you don't, I'll ask today Urmil to, today's a Mother's Day, so Urmil will sing a Mother's Day poem for us, and many will sing a bhajan. But before that, let me do that Shanti mantra. And if there's any question or comment, we can definitely discuss that also. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyate. Om Shanti 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 Om.